When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I did not cry. I did not even speak. I just felt something inside me freeze, like a quiet winter spreading through my chest. I looked at her face, searching for even a small sign of softness or hesitation, but there was none. Her expression was calm, almost too calm. I nodded slowly, even though my heart was breaking in a way I had never experienced before. I walked to my room without saying a word, closed the door gently, and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence felt heavy around me, pressing against my lungs, making it hard to breathe. I asked myself how a home I helped build with love could suddenly feel like a place where I was unwanted. I tried to smile, but the smile felt crooked, weak, almost painful. I whispered to myself that maybe this was life's way of reminding me not to hold on too tightly to anything, not even to family. My name is Mary, and I am 62 years old. I raised my only son, Daniel, on my own after his father died when he was still little. Life was not easy, but Daniel gave me strength. I worked long hours as a cleaner, sometimes waking up before dawn just to keep food on the table. Every day, I pushed myself to give him the future he deserved. I was proud of the man he became, kind, hardworking, and respectful. When he met Grace, I was happy. She seemed gentle and caring. She called me Mama with a warm smile, and I truly believed she saw me as family. When they got married, Daniel asked me to live with them. He said he wanted me close so he could take care of me in my old age. I felt loved, valued, and safe. I imagined a peaceful home filled with laughter, shared meals, and simple joy. But life has its own secrets. The changes began in small ways, almost invisible at first. Grace started correcting the way I folded clothes. She said it nicely at the beginning, but her tone slowly shifted. When I entered the kitchen, she sighed softly, almost as if my presence disturbed her. I brushed it off, telling myself she was tired from work. But then she began locking the fridge at night without saying anything. When I asked Daniel, he told me not to worry. He said Grace was stressed, and I wanted to believe him. But deep inside, I felt a distance growing, like a thin wall rising between us. Slow at first, then higher each day. I tried to help around the house, thinking it would make things easier. But the more I tried, the more Grace complained. If I washed the dishes, she said they were still dirty. If I swept the floor, she said I missed corners. Sometimes she looked at me with an expression I couldn't understand, a mixture of annoyance and discomfort, as if I were a stranger. One night, as I walked past the living room, I heard her talking to Daniel. She said, "Your mother is always here. I feel suffocated." Those words sank into my heart like stones. I had never wanted to be a burden. I only wanted to feel like part of the family. After that night, I started staying in my room more often. I wanted to give them space. I told myself it was better this way. But the more I pulled back, the more invisible I became. Meals happened without me. Laughter came from the living room, but I was not included. Sometimes a whole day passed without anyone speaking to me. Daniel noticed the tension, but he didn't know what to do. I could see it in his eyes. He loved his wife, but he also loved me. He was torn between peace and loyalty, and I didn't want him to suffer because of me. The turning point came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making tea when Grace walked in. She stood in front of me with her arms folded, her face cold. She said, "Mama, we need to talk." Her voice was firm, with no kindness in it. My heart sunk, but I stayed silent. Then she said the words that broke me. "It is time for you to leave. We need our own space." For a moment, everything around me blurred. I felt dizzy, like the ground under my feet was shifting. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Instead, I smiled. It was a small, trembling smile. I don't know why I did it. Maybe to hide my pain, maybe to protect myself from collapsing in front of her. I nodded and whispered, "Okay." That was all I could say. I went to my room, closed the door gently, and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence felt heavy around me, pressing against my lungs, making it hard to breathe. I asked myself how a home I helped build with love could suddenly feel like a place where I was unwanted. I tried to smile, but the smile felt crooked, weak, almost painful. I whispered to myself that maybe this was life's way of reminding me not to hold on too tightly to anything, not even to family. When I finally walked out with my suitcase, Daniel stood by the door. His eyes were red. He whispered, "Mama, I'm sorry." I placed my hand on his cheek and forced a gentle smile. I told him, "My son, you owe me nothing. I raised you so you could build your own life. Now go and live it." Grace stood a little behind him, looking everywhere except at me. I gave her a small nod, not out of anger, but out of acceptance. Then I stepped outside. The air was cool, and the sky was turning orange with the setting sun. The door closed behind me with a soft click, and I felt a strange mixture of sadness and freedom. I had lost a home, but I had also gained back my peace. I moved into a small rented room not far from their house. It was simple, with a small bed, a wooden table, and one window that opened to the street. I cleaned it, arranged my things, and tried to make it feel like home. The silence there was different, gentle, calm, not heavy or painful. I cooked small meals for myself, read old books, and took slow walks in the afternoons. Little by little, I learned to enjoy my own company again. I learned to breathe without feeling like I was taking someone else's air. Daniel visited me from time to time, not often, but enough. Every time he hugged me, he held me tightly, as if afraid I might disappear. I always told him I was fine. I never wanted him to carry the guilt of something that was not his fault. I saw in his eyes that he was still struggling, but I knew he would be okay. He had his own life to live, his own journey to follow. With time, I began to understand that Grace was not cruel. She was simply trying to create her own life, her own space, her own home. I was in the middle of that without realizing it. Life taught me a hard but gentle lesson. Love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes, love is knowing when to step away quietly, with grace and dignity. I learned that holding on too tightly can break people, but letting go can allow them to breathe. The pain I felt on the day I left still lingers sometimes, but it has softened, like a scar that no longer hurts when touched. I realized that peace doesn't always come from what we keep. Sometimes it comes from what we release. I learned to forgive, not just Grace, but also myself. I learned to create a life that is small but peaceful, simple but full of quiet strength. Now, when I sit by the window of my small room and watch the sunset, I often smile. Not the painful smile I forced on that terrible day, but a real smile. A smile that says, I survived. I am still here, and I am still learning how to live. Life continues, and so do I. I am learning that even when love changes, even when homes shift, even when hearts drift apart, there is always a place where we can rebuild ourselves, a place where we can start again, a place where peace waits patiently for us to arrive.